Clara froze. The hand of the billionaire she had cared for over the past months just tightened around her wrist. He had woken up, but what he remembered didn't just change his fate. It put Clara in danger. A dark secret was uncovered. A love began to bloom on the edge of life and death. This story will leave you breathless, proving that love, betrayal, and fate can intertwine in the most unexpected ways. Don't miss the next twists. Hit subscribe now to uncover the secrets yet to be revealed. The fluorescent lights in Riverside Memorial Hospital hummed softly, casting a cold, sterile glow over the pristine white hallways. Clara Weston had been a nurse here for nearly 2 years, but today something felt off. From the moment she received the sudden summons to the office of Dr. Samuel Vaughn, head of neurology, an uneasy tension gripped her chest. Had she done something wrong? Was she about to be reassigned? Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the polished mahogany door. "Come in." Stepping inside, she found Dr. Samuel Vaughn standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his sharp eyes fixed on the city skyline. The faint scent of antiseptic mingled with expensive leather, but today the air felt heavier than usual. "Clara," he said, finally turning to her. His voice was steady but serious. "We have a patient who requires special care, but this job isn't for the faint of heart." Clara frowned. "Not for the faint of heart," she repeated cautiously. "What kind of patient are we talking about?" Dr. Vaughn studied her for a moment before gesturing toward the thick medical file on his desk. "Nathaniel Sterling," he said. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Nathaniel Sterling. Even if she didn't recognize the name immediately, the file cover told her everything. A grainy black and white newspaper clipping showed the aftermath of a horrific car crash. A year ago, the city's youngest billionaire had suffered a devastating accident. His luxury sports car had veered off a bridge in the dead of night, leaving him in a coma ever since. His name had once dominated headlines: Nathaniel Sterling, the ruthless, untouchable CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a man who built an empire by the age of 35. Now he was nothing more than a shadow trapped in his own body. "His family rarely visits," Dr. Vaughn continued. "Most of the staff treats him out of obligation, but Nathaniel needs someone who genuinely cares." Clara bit her lip. She could hear the hesitation in his voice. "And you think that someone is me?" Dr. Vaughn nodded. "I do." Clara inhaled slowly. Caring for a man who might never wake up, a man who once wielded enough power and wealth to shape the lives of thousands, was a daunting task. But deep down, she already knew her answer. "I'll do it." Dr. Vaughn's lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes held a glimmer of approval. "Good, your shift starts tonight." The private suite on the hospital's top floor was eerily quiet as Clara stepped inside. Unlike the cold sterility of the other rooms, this space was built for luxury, spacious, dimly lit chandeliers casting a soft glow, rich ebony wood furnishings adding warmth. And in the center of it all, Nathaniel. Clara's breath hitched as she looked at him. Despite the IVs and machines keeping him alive, despite his stillness, he was breathtaking. Sharp jawline, long dark lashes resting against pale skin, broad shoulders visible even beneath the hospital gown. If not for the eerie stillness, he could have been mistaken for a man simply sleeping. But this was no ordinary sleep. This was a man trapped in endless silence. Swallowing hard, Clara stepped closer, adjusting his IV before reaching for the warm cloth she had prepared. She hesitated for a moment, then gently placed the cloth against his skin. The instant she touched him, a strange chill ran down her spine, an unshakable sensation she couldn't explain. As if he could feel her presence, as if somewhere deep within he knew she was there. The soft beep of the heart monitor remained steady, unchanged. Clara pushed the odd feeling aside and continued her work, carefully wiping his arms, his chest, ensuring he was clean and cared for. "I guess you don't get a say in this, do you?" she murmured almost to herself. Silence. "Well, I'll take that as permission then." A small, unintentional smile touched her lips. Days passed, falling into routine. Morning and night, Clara would bathe him, change his sheets, monitor his vitals. But soon it became more than just medical care. She found herself talking to him, telling him about her day, about the world outside his window. "You wouldn't believe the cafeteria food, Nathaniel. It's a disaster. Even a billionaire like you wouldn't survive it." Silence. "I don't even know why I'm talking to you. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice." Silence. "Or maybe you're actually listening." The steady beeping of the heart monitor continued, almost like it was answering her. And maybe, just maybe, he really was listening. Clara softly hummed a quiet melody as she dipped a fresh cloth into the warm water. The sterile silence of Nathaniel's private hospital room was something she had grown used to over the past few weeks. The rhythmic beeps of the monitor, the faint hum of the IV drip, these sounds had become nothing more than background noise in her life. Leaning over the bed, she carefully wiped Nathaniel's face, her touch gentle yet precise. "You know," she murmured, "I read somewhere that people in comas can still hear everything. So technically, you might just be the worst listener I've ever met." No response. "Of course," she sighed, shaking her head. "Well, I guess I'm used to talking to myself anyway." She moved lower, tracing the edge of his jawline with the cloth, then froze. A tiny movement. Her breath caught. Had she imagined it? Claire's gaze locked onto his hand. Nothing. His fingers remained perfectly still against the crisp white sheets. A soft laugh escaped her lips as she shook her head. "Great. Now I'm hallucinating. Maybe I'm the one who needs a hospital bed." But the uneasy feeling lingered. And then a few days later it happened again, the second time she was adjusting his pillow. She didn't see it, she felt it. A faint pressure brushed against her wrist. Her head snapped down. Nathaniel's hand had moved, just a fraction of an inch, but enough to send a jolt through her stomach. "Nathaniel," she whispered, not even realizing she had said his name out loud. Silence. Just the same steady beep, beep, beep from the monitor. Clara placed her hand over his, feeling the warmth, the stillness, and the possibility of movement. Nothing. Was she imagining things, or was something really changing? She couldn't shake the feeling, so she told Dr. Samuel Vaughn. "He moved." The doctor raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "I think so," Clara admitted. "At first I thought I was imagining it, but it keeps happening." His fingers twitch. His hand shifts just slightly. "But it's real." Dr. Vaughn leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "We'll run some tests," he finally said. "But don't get your hopes up, Clara. It could just be reflexive muscle contractions." She nodded, but deep down she didn't believe that. She could feel it. Something was changing. And when the test results came back, she wasn't surprised. "His brain activity is increasing," Dr. Vaughn told her. "His neural responses are stronger than before." Her heart leapt. "So, he's waking up." Dr. Vaughn hesitated. "Not exactly. It could mean a lot of things, but it's a good sign." Not the answer she wanted, but it was enough. That night, as she sat beside Nathaniel's bed, Clara found herself talking more than usual. "I don't know if you can hear me, but something tells me you can," she whispered. Her gaze drifted over his face, sharp features perfectly still. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone in the room. So she kept talking. She told him about her day, the patients who drove her crazy, the irritating doctor on the third floor who kept stealing her coffee. She told him about her childhood, the small town where she grew up, her dream of becoming a nurse. And as she spoke, she didn't realize that in the midst of his endless silence, Nathaniel was listening. Morning sunlight streamed through the large hospital window, casting a warm glow over Nathaniel's motionless body. The familiar beeping of the heart monitor filled the room, steady, rhythmic, unchanged for over a year. Clara rolled up her sleeves. Just another day, another scheduled bath, Another one-sided conversation with someone who might never answer her. Dipping the warm cloth into the basin, she wrung it out and gently began wiping his chest. Every movement was careful practiced. "You know, Nathaniel," she mused, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'm thinking about getting a dog. I need someone to talk to, someone who won't just lie there all day ignoring me." Silence. She sighed. "Okay, Rude. I was just making conversation." She reached for his arm, running the cloth gently along his forearm, her fingers brushing over his wrist. And then his fingers tightened around her wrist. Clara froze. A sharp breath caught in her throat as she stared at his hand. The pressure wasn't strong, weak, tentative, uncertain, but it was real. Oh my God. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She wanted to believe it was just another reflex, an involuntary spasm. But it wasn't. Because a second later, Nathaniel's eyes opened. For a moment, Clara couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She had spent months staring at those closed eyelids, waiting for even the slightest flicker of movement, clinging to the smallest hope. And now those deep blue eyes were staring straight at her. Confusion, uncertainty, fragility, but alive. Nathaniel's lips parted slightly. His voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper, but it was real. Clara froze. Her knees nearly buckled. Her breath caught somewhere between pure shock and overwhelming panic. He spoke. He woke up. The impossible had just happened. She barely registered the basin slipping from her fingers, water spilling across the pristine white floor as she stumbled back. Oh my God. Her instincts kicked in. She spun around, slamming her hand against the emergency button on the wall. The alarm blared through the hallway. Seconds later, the door burst open, a team of doctors and nurses rushing in, Dr. Samuel Vaughn leading the charge. "What happened?" Dr. Vaughn moved swiftly to Nathaniel's bedside, checking his vitals as he spoke. Clara's voice trembled. He grabbed my hand. He opened his eyes. She turned back to Nathaniel, still struggling to believe what she was witnessing. His chest rose and fell weakly, his eyes darting around the room as if trying to piece together scattered fragments. Where was he? What was happening? He wasn't fully conscious, but he was here. Dr. Vaughn's expression shifted from shock to immediate action. "Get neurology down here now." Nurses scrambled, their voices overlapping with bursts of disbelief as they rushed to run tests. The room was a whirlwind of motion, but Clara couldn't tear her gaze away from Nathaniel. And then, as if sensing her presence, his eyes found hers once more. And this time, he didn't look away. Everything moved too fast. The doctors fired questions at him, flashed lights into his pupils, tested his reflexes, but no matter what they did, Nathaniel's gaze never left Clara. She stepped closer, breath caught in her chest. "Nathaniel," she whispered. "Do you remember anything?" He stared at her, blinking slowly. A long silence stretched between them. Then his fingers twitched. Before she could react, his hand lifted weakly, hesitantly but deliberately. He reached for her, slow, uncertain, but intentional. His fingers curled around hers, feeble but firm, as if somehow he had always known who she was. Clara held her breath. Dr. Vaughn's sharp gaze flicked up. "Nathaniel, do you know who she is?" Nathaniel didn't answer right away. His brows knitted together. His eyes never left Clara's. "I don't know." His voice was raspy from months of silence. "I don't remember her, but I feel like I should." A chill ran down Clara's spine. Because even though Nathaniel didn't remember her, somewhere deep inside, a part of him still recognized her. The days following Nathaniel's miraculous awakening were filled with endless tests, therapy, and questions. Doctors were stunned by his rapid recovery. Physically, he was still weak but improving. Muscles stiffened from a year of immobility were slowly regaining strength through rehab. But mentally, that was a different story. Nathaniel had no memory of the accident, and the more they pressed, the more frustrated he became. "Let's try again, Nathaniel." Dr. Vaughn said during a therapy session. What's the last thing you remember? Nathaniel ran a hand over his temple, his expression strained. I don't know. Do you remember where you were? What you were doing? Nathaniel exhaled sharply, his voice tense. I already told you. It's just fragments, flashes of images. Tell me about them. A long pause. Then Nathaniel closed his eyes, brows furrowing. I remember a feeling. His voice was slow, uncertain. Like something wasn't right. Like I was in danger. Etienne, Clara, who had been silently sitting beside him, tensed. Nathaniel continued, his fingers clenching into fists. A road, headlights, and then his jaw tightened. Nothing, just darkness. Dr. Vaughn sighed. That's common with trauma patients. The mind often blocks painful memories. It might return over time, but for now, let's focus on your recovery. Nathaniel nodded, but Clara saw the frustration in the way his jaw locked. And deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about what Nathaniel had said. So Clara went to the hospital archives. She had read Nathaniel's file before. But this time, she examined every detail with fresh eyes. And that's when she saw it, something she had missed before. The crash reconstruction report. It stated that Nathaniel's brakes had failed. Failed, not worn out. Not a mechanical malfunction. Tampered with. A cold shiver ran down her spine. This wasn't just a tragic accident. Someone had tried to kill Nathaniel, and he had no idea. Clara took a shaky breath and closed the file. She had to tell him. Because if someone had tried to kill him once, they might try again. Meanwhile, Nathaniel's recovery was happening at a staggering pace. Within weeks, he could sit up, eat on his own, speak fluently. With the help of physical therapy, he was learning to walk again. And through it all, Clara was there. Every step, every struggle, every moment of frustration when he wanted to give up. I can't do this, Nathaniel muttered, gripping the parallel bars, struggling to lift his leg. Yes, you can, Clara said firmly, standing right beside him. You've come too far to stop now, Nathaniel. He turned his head toward her, breathing hard. She wasn't just saying it to encourage him. She truly believed in him. And because of that, he started believing in himself too. With a steady breath, he took another step forward. Clara's face lit up. That's it, amazing. For the first time since waking up, Nathaniel smiled. Not out of politeness, not out of obligation, but because for the first time he truly felt alive again. And he knew exactly who he had to thank for that. Clara. She was different from everyone else. She didn't treat him like a helpless case. She didn't see him as a billionaire trapped in a hospital bed. She saw him. Just Nathaniel. Not a CEO, not a patient, not a man with no memory, just Nathaniel. And that was why every time she was in the room, he found himself drawn to her. When she spoke, the world seemed lighter. Her voice pulled him out of the lingering darkness in his mind. When she touched him, a steady hand on his arm as he walked, adjusting his pillow, his skin tingled with a sensation he couldn't explain. One night after a long therapy session, Clara suggested a walk in the hospital garden. Fresh air might help you feel better. She smiled. Nathaniel agreed, but he wasn't prepared for how different the world felt outside those hospital walls. The cool night air, the rustling trees, the moonlight casting a soft glow over everything. For the first time, he felt like a real person. Not a patient. Not a mystery with missing memories. Just himself. And beside him was Clara. They walked slowly. Clara held onto his arm for support. At first, Nathaniel thought it was just part of her job, but then he noticed how her fingers lingered on his wrist a little longer than necessary, the way she stole glances when she thought he wasn't looking. the way her breath hitched when he stepped just a little too close. And suddenly he knew. She felt it too. That invisible pull, that unspoken connection between them. They stopped near a small stone bench, the moon casting long shadows across the garden. Nathaniel turned to face her, his heart pounding. But this time not from fear. Clara parted her lips as if to say something, but before she could, Nathaniel took her hand. Her lips parted in surprise. Her eyes searched his for answers. "I don't remember my life before this," Nathaniel admitted, his voice low. Clara swallowed hard. "Then what do you know?" Nathaniel squeezed her hand tighter. "I trust you." The words were simple, but to him they meant everything. And judging by the way Clara's breath caught, the way her cheeks flushed under the moonlight, the way she didn't pull away, she understood. And for now that was enough. That night he tossed and turned in bed, his body still weak but his mind racing. Then suddenly a memory shattered through his subconscious like a dam breaking. A dark road, rain slamming against the windshield, the wipers working furiously but not fast enough. Nathaniel gripped the steering wheel, his mind still on the meeting he had just left. Something felt wrong, an uneasy sensation. Then bright headlights, a car swerving directly into his lane at full speed. Black. Nathaniel jerked the wheel tires, skidding across the slick pavement. The brakes, they weren't working. His heart pounded, breath coming in short gasps as he fought for control. And just before the crash, his eyes flicked to the side of the road, a figure standing there, watching him, and then darkness. Nathaniel shot, upright eyes wide, breath ragged. His heartbeat thundered, sweat dripping down his skin. That memory, too vivid, too real, and now he knew the truth. This wasn't an accident. Someone had tried to kill him. Clara knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into his room. Nathaniel was different. The usual smirk was gone. His body was tense, his hands clenched into fists. "Nathaniel," Clara asked carefully, "what's wrong?" His sharp blue eyes locked onto hers with a newfound intensity. "I remembered something." Clara's stomach dropped. "About the accident." Nathaniel gave a stiff nod. "It wasn't an accident, Clara. Someone tampered with my brakes, and there was a man standing on the side of the road, watching me as my car went off the bridge." A cold shiver ran down Clara's spine. Everything she had suspected, he had just confirmed. But one question still remained. Who and why? In the days that followed, Clara and Nathaniel combed through every file. Company records, financial reports, anything that could reveal who wanted him gone. And finally, they found it. A bank transfer, a massive sum of money wired just days before the accident. The recipient, a man with a criminal record for orchestrating staged car crashes. The sender, Damien Holt, Nathaniel's half-brother. The truth hit like a sledgehammer. "It was him," Nathaniel whispered, gripping the edge of the table. Damien had always been jealous, had always felt that Nathaniel was the favored son, the rightful heir to their father's empire, while Damien was left in the shadows. And now, he had tried to erase Nathaniel completely. "Nathaniel," Clara whispered, fear tightening in her chest. "He wanted you dead." Nathaniel clenched his jaw. "And now I'm going to make him pay." That night, Nathaniel and Clara arranged a meeting with Damien. They waited in the dimly lit study of the Sterling estate. Damien Holt sat comfortably in a leather chair, a glass of whiskey swirling in his hand. When Nathaniel and Clara stepped inside, he smirked. "Well, well." Damien leaned back, amusement dancing in his eyes. "The dead man walks." Nathaniel's eyes burned with fury. "Why did you do it, Damien?" Damien took a slow sip of whiskey, not rushing to answer. "You already know the answer." His voice was low, his gaze dark. Clara stepped forward, her voice sharp with anger. "You tried to kill your own brother. For what money, power?" Damien's smirk vanished. For everything that should have been mine, he hissed. You were always the perfect son, the heir, the one handed everything. And me, I'm done waiting my turn. Nathaniel clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. So you hired someone to sabotage my breaks. Damien let out a cold, humorless laugh. I didn't think you'd survive. He shrugged. But hey, sometimes miracles happen, right? Rage bubbled in Clara's chest. She opened her mouth to speak, but the door burst open. Two uniformed officers strode in. Damien's face went pale. Damien Holt, one of the officers said firmly. You're under arrest for attempted murder. Damien's head snapped toward Nathaniel, panic twisting his features. You set me up. Nathaniel tilted his head, his gaze icy. No, brother, you set yourself up. Damien was dragged away in handcuffs, shouting empty threats. The door slammed shut behind him. Silence settled over the room. Nathaniel exhaled deeply, his shoulders relaxing for the first time since waking up. It was over. Justice had been served, and now he was truly free. The Sterling estate had always been grand, imposing, and cold, a fortress built on generations of wealth and power. But tonight, as Clara stepped into the dimly lit dining room, everything felt different, warmer, more intimate. Soft candlelight flickered across a perfectly set table. Massive glass windows reflected the glittering city skyline. The faint scent of fresh roses lingered in the air. A bottle of chilled wine sat beside two flawless plates. Clara held her breath. Nathaniel, what is all this? She turned, staring at him. Nathaniel stood just behind her, hands in his pockets, his blue eyes both soft and intense. Dinner. Just you and me, Nathaniel said simply. Clara's chest tightened. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. Nathaniel's recovery, the truth about the accident, the moment she watched his brother being taken away. But now the storm had passed. All that remained was this moment. And strangely, it scared her more than anything else. They sat down to eat. Clara couldn't ignore the way Nathaniel looked at her, as if he was memorizing every detail, as if she were something fragile yet infinitely precious. You're too quiet, she teased, smiling. That's not like you. Nathaniel exhaled, turning his wine glass between his fingers. I'm thinking. That's even more dangerous, she joked lightly, but he didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned forward, his gaze burning into her. Clara, do you know how many people abandoned me while I was in that coma? Her smile faded. She knew. She had seen it firsthand. The way his family treated him like a burden. The way his so-called friends moved on with their lives. The only person who stayed was her. But you didn't, Nathaniel whispered. Every single day you were there. You cared for me when I couldn't even open my eyes. When I was nothing but a lost cause to everyone else. You refused to give up on me. Clara's throat tightened. She had never thought of it that way. She had simply done what felt right. But to Nathaniel it meant everything. He leaned in closer, his fingers brushing against hers on the table. Clara, I have everything. His voice was low, steady. Money. Power. Influence. But none of it means anything without you. Clara held her breath. Nathaniel, let me finish. Nathaniel whispered, his hand finally closed over hers, his thumb tracing slow, deliberate circles against her skin. I don't know how it happened. I don't know when it started. But I know one thing for certain. Every moment I was trapped in that coma, you were the one keeping me alive. You were my light in the dark, Clara. Clara's eyes burned with unshed tears. I love you. The words crashed over her like a tidal wave, stealing the breath from her lungs. Not because she hadn't felt it too, but because hearing it from him made it undeniable. Nathaniel, The man who had once lived in a world of numbers, contracts, and power was now sitting before her, his heart completely unguarded. And for the first time in her life, Clara felt something she never had before. Fully, completely, and irrevocably, she was cherished. A single tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled through it. "Nathaniel," she whispered, "you have no idea how much that means to me." Nathaniel reached up, gently wiping the tear from her face. "Then let me show you." And as he leaned in, pressing his forehead against hers, Clara knew this was only the beginning. The night Nathaniel confessed his love for Clara, and in that time everything had changed. Nathaniel had fully recovered, regaining his strength through relentless therapy and training. His body was no longer weak, no longer bound by the accident that nearly took his life. Now he was Nathaniel once again. Nathaniel stood in the boardroom with the confidence of a man who had walked through hell and survived. But there was one fundamental difference between the man he used to be and the man he was becoming, between the man before the accident and the man standing here now. There was a profound shift. This time he wasn't alone. This time he had Clara, and soon if she said yes, she would be his forever. The rooftop of the Sterling estate was bathed in the soft glow of sunset, golden hues spilling over the breathtaking city skyline. Clara stood at the edge of the balcony, her gaze fixed on the stunning view, completely unaware of what was about to happen. "This place is beautiful," she murmured, the evening breeze playing with her hair. Behind her, Nathaniel smiled. "Not as beautiful as you." Clara turned, rolling her eyes playfully. Smooth Sterling, very smooth. But the teasing smile on her lips slowly faded, because something in his eyes was different tonight. Deeper, certain, endless. Before she could ask, Nathaniel took a deep breath, and then slowly he dropped to one knee. Clara's breath hitched. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes widening as Nathaniel pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning engagement ring, a breathtaking diamond set on an elegant platinum band. But what truly left her speechless wasn't the ring. It was him, the way his voice trembled slightly as he whispered, "Clara, you didn't just save my life. You became my life." Her heart pounded. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You are the reason I fought to live. The reason I found myself again." Nathaniel looked at her, his eyes filled with nothing but truth. "And now I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you know just how much you mean to me." He lifted the ring, never taking his eyes off her. "Clara Weston, will you marry me?" The world seemed to stop. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All she could do was nod. Again and again, laughing and crying all at once. Finally, she whispered, her voice shaking, "Yes. Yes, Nathaniel. 1,000 times yes." Nathaniel let out a breath of pure relief, sliding the ring onto her finger, then pulling her into his arms, into his world, into forever. And as their lips met beneath the fading sunset, Clara knew this was where she belonged. Forever. The Sterling estate had never shined brighter. On their wedding day, the garden transformed into an enchanted wonderland. Pathways lined with white roses, twinkling fairy lights wrapped around towering oak trees, soft music floating through the air, warm and inviting. Guests arrived in awe. Clara stood at the grand entrance, draped in a breathtaking white gown, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ready," Lila Harper, her maid of honor, whispered beside her. Clara took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around her bouquet. Then she lifted her head and saw him. Nathaniel stood at the altar, dressed in a classic black tuxedo, looking at her as if she was the only person in the universe. Every doubt, every fear melted away. She walked forward, each step bringing her closer to forever, and when she finally stood before him, Nathaniel took her hands, his eyes glowing with something pure, something unshakable. Love. Their vows weren't just spoken, they were carved into existence, woven into the very fabric of their journey, built on every trial, every battle, every moment of unwavering devotion. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Cheers erupted around them. Nathaniel cupped her face, pressing a deep, meaningful kiss to her lips, and as the world celebrated, Clara realized this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Nathaniel and Clara slipped away from the crowd, hand in hand, walking through the garden, soaking in their new reality. No more hospitals, no more loneliness, no more pain, just them, together, forever. Nathaniel gently squeezed her hand, whispering, "You know, before I met you, I thought I had everything." Clara smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. And now, Nathaniel glanced down at her, his eyes filled with warmth, sincerity, and eternity. "Now I know that everything I ever had meant nothing, because you are the best thing that ever happened to me." Clara blinked back happy tears, her heart overflowing, and as they walked into the golden glow of the setting sun, she knew they had faced storms, darkness, near death itself. But in the end, love had won, and with Nathaniel by her side, Clara had finally found her home. As Nathaniel and Clara stepped into their forever, their love became a testament to something undeniable. Love isn't just about finding someone. It's about standing beside them no matter the storm. Clara had never abandoned Nathaniel, even when the world turned its back on him. And in the end, it wasn't wealth or power that saved him. It was love. If you were Clara, what would you do when you realized something wasn't right? Have you ever faced a situation that made you feel uneasy but still had to remain professional? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone find the right path. Wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.